Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously. Next on our agenda is public comment. I would ask that you keep your public comments to 3 minutes. Your lights up there will tell you when you start is green, when you're getting close is yellow, and when you're finished it will turn red. We have a lot on the agenda this evening, so if you would be aware of that, I would greatly appreciate it.
Mr. Chairman, if I could,
Yes,
I apologize. I was putting my notes in order. I'd like to add something to the agenda if it's not too late. An appointee for a advisory board.
Can we go back on that?
I'll make a motion to amend.
I entertain a motion to amend the agenda.
I make a motion to amend the agenda.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I'd like to add a appointee to the advisory board, the library board, under new business. We can make that A1
A1.
or D1.
We could put it after the disaster debris. C1.
D1, okay.
Make a motion that we approve the minutes as revised, or the agenda as revised, excuse me.
Second that.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously. Next on the agenda is public comment. As I stated, and the first person I will call up will be Josh Bass. If you would please state your name and address for the record. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Josh Bass. I reside at 103 Egret Cove in Mohawk. Thank you again, and thank you to the Currituck Board of Commissioners for your support on the local brunch bill 3 weeks ago. With limited time tonight, I'd like to present a few facts. First off, there are 127 ABC active permit holders in Currituck County. And according to the North Carolina Restaurant and Lodging Association, Sunday alcohol sales beginning at noon has the potential to add $480 in additional revenue to establishments per week. And that's for that 2 hours we're asking for. If you calculate out just the Sundays between Memorial Day and Labor Day, with 127 permit holders, that's $853,440 in those 14 weeks. If this was a single company, that would be the kind of revenue we would be issuing press releases on, and the governor would be here making a major economic announcement. That's a lot of revenue for this county. I have heard that this shouldn't be about profit, but in a rural county, 70 to 80% of job creation comes from existing businesses, and if we put over $850,000 more into our local economy, that will grow jobs at no cost to the taxpayers. The basic question here is, does this board believe in more government regulation or less? The function of government is to regulate when the effects have a potentially harmful effect to the general public. And for that reason, we regulate things like drunk driving, but the sale and consumption of alcohol should not be regulated. You regulate the effects. John Hood of the John Locke Foundation said of this issue, if your concept of freedom is that you ought to only extend it to behavior with which you personally agree, then you have conceived it out of existence. Thank you again for your consideration this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Bass. Manley West.
My name is Manley West. I live at 2658 Currituck Highway. I'm a lifelong resident here in Currituck. I came before you at your July conference or commission meeting so that you know how I feel about this ordinance before you tonight concerning the sale of alcohol beginning at 10 a.m. But I'd like to reflect on some of the comments from that meeting. You were given a survey that was probably one-sided in it, that it was only given to the patrons during the hours of 10 to 12 in which they could not receive the purchase of alcohol. I think that was really a one-sided survey. Commissioner Hall stated that in his 31 years as a police officer, the alcohol-related accidents or crashes that he had attended on Sunday morning were not related to the Sunday purchase of alcohol, only Saturday night related. But wouldn't it have been better to have not had to have gone to any alcohol-related accidents? 30% of all accidents in North Carolina in 2014 and 2015 were alcohol-related. That's 1 in every 3. The example was used of stopping to buy wine on the way home. These products probably were available at stores on the Outer Banks that could have been purchased during the week that these people were on vacation. Commissioner White stated that the business in his districts have 120 days to make a living, and it would have an impact on him. It is a tough world, and we're all out here trying to make a living. But if a business is struggling, I cannot believe that alcohol sales for 2 hours, 1 day a week, is going to make them profitable. In a world that you and I have seen deteriorate, sometimes we have to realize that everything is not always about the almighty dollar, and we have to do the right thing even when it might not be popular. You have the overwhelming responsibility of making decisions that have a far-reaching effect on the citizens of their county. On Friday night, the 21st of July, a young lady lost her life on what was probably the result of alcohol. There was open containers found in her car. As a result, an 8-year-old girl will grow up without her mother. It was tragic enough for her to lose her life, but what if she had caused the death of an innocent citizen or tourist? What if it had been your wife or your husband or your son or your daughter where she crossed the center line and hit head on? The Daily Advance on Wednesday, July the 26th, had a front page article about drug and alcohol in our area high schools and the emphasis that is being put on drug and alcohol detection. As adults, we have a responsibility to provide as safe an environment as possible for our youth. We must set examples that will show them that their lives are more important than money. I hope you will really consider the message that you are sending to everyone, young and old. I've heard the argument that we have to appease the tourists because that's what they have in their home state. When you come to my house, you abide by my rules. Who knows, they might even find out they can have a fabulous time without alcohol. You will not stop the complete usage of alcohol, but you can take action that will not encourage its consumption. You have a duty to protect the safety and the citizens of and visitors of our county. Do not adopt the Sunday brunch ordinance. I think there are also some folks here in the audience that don't feel comfortable or don't want to speak, but if you would like to see a show of hands, I'm sure they would do that.
Thank you, Mr. West.
On an unrelated subject, as chairman, I know I'm over my 3 minutes, but this is something different. As chairman of the Currituck County Soil and Water Conservation Supervisor, I want to invite all of you to our Albemarle District meeting Thursday night at the Weeksville Lion Club at 6:30. Also on Thursday afternoon, at 1 o'clock, we're having a wind turbine tour of the wind turbines in Pasquotank County. So if you're interested in attending that, you can let me know, or either you can call Kim at the Soil and Water Office and let her know so that we can have some count on numbers. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. West.
Mr. West, that's at 6:30 Thursday, correct?
6:30 for the meeting at Weeksville Lions Club. But the tour is at 1 o'clock if you're interested in seeing the turbines.
Sean Belanger.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Sean Belanger. I reside at 115 Noah's Lane in Point Harbor. I also own a restaurant, Greenside Bar and Grill, which is located at the Point Golf Course. So this bill has a direct impact on my livelihood and a lot of the other restaurants around here. Along with what Mr. Bass was saying, that's a lot of revenue to lose, but what he also failed to mention was the fact that the trend of brunch weddings has started to incline, which means a lot of revenue for the county. And, I mean, if any of y'all have daughters, you know how expensive a wedding is, you know. With that being said, past 2 years, Charlotte, the Panthers have got the alcohol bill so that they can start start serving alcohol at 11 a.m. And this has been going on for the last 2 years. So obviously, the state knows that it's a money maker. And they wouldn't have passed it if it wasn't, and if it didn't have benefits for us as people. Also, with that being said, I understand that it's a Sunday, it's a church day, but people are on vacation, and honestly, not everyone goes to church. So I think we should let people decide their own moral high ground when it comes to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bellagio. Dan Lewis.
Good evening, Commissioners. Daniel Lewis, 122 Roanoke Drive, Kill Devil Hills. Even though I'm not a Currituck resident, I'm here as president of the Outer Banks Restaurant Association, which has over 100 restaurant and associate members in both Dare and Currituck counties. Back in March, we voted unanimously to petition the state legislature for support of this bill, and lo and behold, they did it. They did it with some remarkable numbers: 73 to 40 in the House, 37 to 9 in the Senate. Not too much passes with that, much favorability in Raleigh these days. And as a result, subsequently, we have passage in Dare County as well as all of the municipalities. And even though NAGS had kind of drug its feet a little bit for transparency issues, with the exception of Manio, it has been unanimous. So I don't think there has been a lot of resistance on this. So this affects not only over 100 members, but all of those thousands and thousands of Currituck and Dare County employees that have to put food on the table and pay their bills. So this, we're talking 2 hours, but these 2 hours mean a lot. The results that we've seen just in the past couple weeks from members, some members are saying they're seeing a 50% increase in sales for that 2 hour period. And anecdotally, I have heard nothing from any law enforcement as far as any negative impacts legally or otherwise. And while I feel sympathy for any alcohol-related casualties, I don't believe that changing these hours is going to change individual behavior. So that I believe there's evidence that pans out that changing this will not increase any issues in that result. So this is the last of several meetings that I've attended. One of the most recent ones was the Dare County Commissioners meeting, which was the first time that I attended, and I had a prepared statement to read to them as well. But it just so happened that was a Monday, the day after the first approved Sunday sales in Kitty Hawk and Southern Shores. And that morning, I went being a restaurant guy, I really didn't consider the retailers. So that morning went to Food Lion and Harris Teeter and talked to the front end managers there and wasn't even sure if they were aware of it, but they did. I asked them how it went, and so what they said was it was great because we didn't have those 3 to 5 shopping carts full of confiscated beer and wine that we'd normally do before noon. But that wasn't a big deal. They're probably going to sell that anyway. But what they didn't have were dozens of angry, upset tourists that just don't get some of these backward laws. So, and then when I went to that meeting, the first part of the commissioners' meeting was recognizing all of the employees for their outstanding service. There are 10, 15, 20. I think there was one for 25 years. And the employee of the month was a garbage man who had unbeknownst to him, had his whole fan club in attendance there. It was spectacular to see. And they introduced the new superintendent of schools. And it made me realize that, like it or not, people, we are in a tourist-driven economy. It's what provides our schools, our hospitals, our services, all of these fantastic employees. So I urge you to approve this bill so that we can continue to reap the benefits, not just the restaurants or the employees, but our entire community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. Ginger Sykes.
I'm Ginger Sykes, and I reside at 111 Mallard Drive on Bells Island in Currituck. As Currituck is growing, so are the number of dogs. The last time I checked, Currituck County had more dogs per household than the national average. And we just did a posting on Facebook and Moyoc recently and had 152 responses, of which 144 were in support of having dog parks. The other couple had some concerns about it, and there are justifiably, I think, concerns and positives and negatives to be had. With dog parks, there are two kinds. One is a people park, where you can walk a dog on a leash. Okay, we have parks like that, but right now they all have, except for the one at Whalehead, all have no pets allowed signs posted. And then the other kind is a dog park that has compartments fenced off for large, medium, small dogs, maybe a water access or something like that. With the one at Whalehead, I think that's more designed, unless it's changed recently. I haven't been out there in the last couple of weeks, but it's probably designed more to have an enhancement for our tourists. In order to have a dog park, you have to have a couple of things. You have to have land. We have some parks set up, and I'll go into that in just a moment. You have to have bathrooms, public bathrooms, and water. You have to have some parking, and it needs to be located where it's not near a major road or something of that sort, or a housing development where the noise might carry. But right now we have, for example, the Rural Life Center. Could be easily adapted. We have Veterans Park in Coinjock. We have over near the Currituck Animal Shelter, an area that could be adapted and made very usable. In Moyock, I would suggest perhaps a location off of the main highway and maybe in the Tulls Creek Road area. Just to let you know, in yesterday's Daily Advance, they had an article, and we all are trying to be more physically fit and lose weight. And people who walk their dogs have an average of 22 extra minutes of exercise per day, as opposed to those who don't. And then also, I can tell you for a fact that people love their animals. 2 years ago, this survey was done on how much people spent on pet food. It was $26.7 billion on their pets. And I'd like to find out when you think you might be able to get started on establishing some dog parks and dog-friendly parks in Currituck County. And in the meanwhile, I invite all of you to come with your pets and with your families, including your pets, to the Bark in the Park at Knapp School on Saturday, October the 14th, and with a rain date of the 15th. Thank you very much for your attention to this.
Thank you, Ms. Sykes.
Ms. Sykes, I'd like to address that. I actually sit on the Animal Shelter Advisory Board, and we
Yes.
are in the process of planning a dog park. So I would invite you to and encourage you to attend our next meeting, which is the first Thursday in October. And we have made plans. We've got some great things. We've made some decisions, and we're moving forward with some of those things on the Shelter Advisory Board. Just last month, St. Luke's Episcopal Church did a fundraiser for the animal shelter, and we raised $870 on a Saturday for the shelter. So I'm sure that's going to go towards part of the things for the either the dog park or necessities to get our fur babies adopted. So to let you know that we are in the works of that, and that is coming to fruition. So
good.
I would encourage you to, if you wanted to attend that advisory board meeting, it's the first
I would
Thursday
be delighted to,
of
and
October
I'll contact
at
you and
7
find out
p.m.
when and
at
where.
the shelter.
And I don't know if you've been yet, but they have a dog park in Dare County, Chesapeake, several in Virginia Beach, Norfolk, and so there's some areas that we could learn from in planning ours too, by just a simple visit.
And certainly that's what we've been doing. So thank you for bringing that to the public's attention. But we are in the midst of making that happen.
I'm delighted to hear
Dream
that.
is coming true.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sykes. Matt Polson?
Good evening. My name is Matthew Paulson. I live at 700 West Acock Street in Kill Devil Hills. I am the owner of First Light Breakfast and Burgers, which is located at 793C Sunset Boulevard in Corolla. First, I would like to thank all of the commissioners for their support at the first reading of this ordinance and for your time today. I would also like to ask for your continued support for the sale of alcohol at 10 a.m. on Sundays. My business is primarily breakfast and lunch, and we have a very robust pre-check-in business. On Saturdays and Sundays, with people coming and going, traveling early to avoid traffic, many travel a great distance to see family and friends and would like to have a celebratory drink upon arrival. As you know, this is a family beach, and most of our customers travel in large family groups. It's easy for them to designate a driver so that mom or dad may have a drink with their brother, sister, or friend. Being able to serve alcohol to our primarily tourist customers who are already vacationing on our Corolla beaches would be of great benefit to my business and my employees. It will help improve revenue and therefore tips, wages, and sales. Tax revenue will increase. Small businesses are the economic backbone of our beautiful beach. Without the services from our small business, our tourists won't have the experiences that they desire. Josh and the people at the tourism board are always encouraging us to be open in the shoulder season so that our economy can grow. And the vacationers we work so hard to get have the experience they desire. As all of you well know, you can't run a business without revenue, and restaurant servers can't earn a living without sales. This increased opportunity would be very helpful for us to extend our season, keeping our employees working through the shoulder seasons. I ask you to give us the tools needed to be successful and to be competitive with our Dare County neighbors. Please continue your support for the 10 a.m. Sunday alcohol sales. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Mr. Paulson. Charles Stevens.
My name is Charles Stevens. I reside at 753 Shawboro Road in Shawboro, North Carolina. I want to take the opportunity to thank all you commissioners for the fine work that you're doing involved in our county here. We appreciate all that you do. Thank you for your time and effort that you give to this community and to this county. We are grateful. Obviously, as I have said here tonight, and I have heard people talk about the concerns about this Sunday brunch, I'm sure that all of us have concerns about it, but the thing that I've heard the most is the economic factor that is concerned, bringing money into our county and this type of thing. And I've heard the concern of these men and folks that have stood up here tonight and said that they are, concerned about losing revenue. I would like to say, first of all, I don't think that we need to concern ourselves, honestly, about losing revenue. I've been here almost 15 years, and as pastor of Providence Baptist Church in Shawboro, and I have observed for the last 15 years, every year the beach traffic gets more and more increased. A matter of fact, it's almost difficult if you had to get on 168 to come to church on Sunday morning because of the beach traffic. And they're in a hurry, by the way. If you were to get out there, you take your life into your hands, they think that the beach will be dried up by the time they got there. Now, none of us are wanting to take money out of people's pockets. We certainly understand that. I understand as a pastor what it means to have, quote, revenue come into what you are doing. But in my opinion, this is not the best way to bring revenue into our county here in Currituck. Quite frankly, I must say to you that as a pastor, I've seen a lot of different things to take place in my ministry. And one of the things that stands out in my mind are the times that I've been called to the hospital or the emergency room, and as I go into the hospital to the emergency room and I see a 16-year-old boy so bloodied and mangled up that you cannot recognize who he is, and the parents are completely out of their mind with grief because their son was involved with an alcohol-related situation. Now, I don't know how many of you have children, how many of you have grandchildren, but I would assume that you would take that into careful consideration because, these things actually happen. I've seen them with my own two eyes. So what do you say to a family? What do you say to parents as you stand there and talk to them or try to reason with them or try to console them when they have lost a son that is alcohol-related? So I want to say unto all of us, I want to take into consideration that we're not just serving a certain group in our community in Currituck County. Your responsibility as commissioners is to serve the whole county, all the people. And Mr. Paul Beaumont, thank you for what you stood, the only one. Thank you so much for your stand.
Thank you, Mr. Stevens. Robert Griffin.
Robert Griffin, 436 Poplar Branch Road in Poplar Branch. I'm a member of the Baptist Men at Providence Baptist Church, and
We meet the first Sunday morning of each month for a time of breakfast and fellowship. Certainly any of you would be invited to come and join us. We've had commissioners come in the past. And I certainly am hoping that you will vote against this ordinance for many of the reasons that have been stated by those speakers who have voted against it. But I also just wanted to stand here for you today and indicate in our meeting this past Sunday, we took a poll, we took a vote, and it was unanimous that every man in attendance asked that you vote no for this ordinance. We generally have 15 to 20 men from throughout the community who come. And it was a unanimous vote there. Please vote no on this ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Griffin. John Wright.
Good evening. John Wright, resident of Powell's Point. I'll be brief because I spoke before y'all last time, but I just wanted to come back and mention from the standpoint of a small business owner, vineyard owner, and manager. In the last couple of weeks, we've continued to see folks come by on a Sunday morning between the hours of 10 and noon, pull in the parking lot, and we've still said, indeed, we are closed. I had two people say, well, they were open down there, and I said, well, you're in Currituck, it's just a little different here, to which they didn't quite understand, but I said, that's just how it is. They were looking to purchase bottles of wine to take, sealed, to go with them. They were not looking to drink, and again, I'll reiterate, a lot of our businesses are built on just trying to sell a product to somebody as they leave. We are not in the business of serving open beverages. And again, I'll also bring up one more thing, too, is that this county, we are a conservative county, but we're also a libertarian streak here among a lot of us, and a lot of the folks and constituents that elected you believe in libertarian values and personal accountability and the belief that government doesn't need to be so involved. And I've even heard some of you mention that before. In making your decision, both for and against. And so I'd just like to reiterate that this is an issue of personal accountability. Some of the stances taken against the brunch bill focus on accidents and other mishaps that also go back to personal accountability, not the government. So I'd just like to say that again. And I'd also like to speak, because before you mentioned that you like to hear about your constituents, so we came here as restaurant owners, as patrons, as part of the community to talk in our support. But I'd also like to mention that there's tens of thousands of visitors to our county that participate in the local economy and contribute that aren't here tonight, and that also take part without doing harm, without getting on the road, without causing wrecks. And they're just looking to vacation, and on their way back, maybe they want to pick up a bottle of wine between the hours of 10 and noon, and that's what I'm in support of. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wright. Currently, that's all I have signed up for public comment. Is there anyone that came in late that didn't get a chance to sign up that would like to speak? With that, I will close the public comments. Moving on to administrative reports. Land use plan update, Imagine Currituck survey. And I'll hand it over to Ms. Cicero.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As I hope everyone knows in the county, we are in the middle of updating our land use plan. We started in January of 2016, and we will be going out later this fall to with public input for our draft plan. We got a little excited, and we sent out a postcard a little bit too early, and we are. It was just a little bit of miscommunication between us and a third party that was making our postcard. We don't have a survey ready yet. We will have one ready later this fall. We do have a place on imaginecurrituck.com where you can go and put your email address, so when the survey is ready, you can be notified. So I'd like to apologize to any citizens that went out there and tried to come onto this website to take the survey. We're not quite there yet, but we're excited about it, and we thought we're just so excited about how nice the postcard looked. It went out a little bit too early. So, and we will have several outreach, public community meetings later this fall, along with the survey, to get input from the citizens about some of our draft recommendations and policies.
Thank you, Ms. Cicero. Anyone have any questions for her? Okay, thank you very much. Moving on to public hearings. Public hearing and action, PB 94-49, the Currituck Club PUD zoning map amendment. Request for a zoning map amendment of .2 acres from single-family residential Outer Banks SFO to Plan Unit Development PUD overlay. The property is located in the Currituck Club Ocean subdivision, particularly the open space adjacent to highway, tax map 127E, parcel open 003. With that, I'll hand that over to Ms. LaCicero.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before I get started on the staff report, because this is a complicated issue and there are a lot of moving parts to this, tonight we are just looking at the map amendment, basically expanding the plan unit development overlay. We are not looking, this does not involve the driving on the beach issues. It does not involve the umbrellas on the beach or the beach boxes at this point, or even the use of the Currituck County public access there. This is, tonight we're just looking at the legislative matter of the zoning map amendment and expanding the PUD overlay. The property in question at issue is at 475 Yopon Lane. This is where contains the Surf Shack. And it is currently zoned single-family Outer Banks, and it is designated open space in the Ocean subdivision, and it is .82 acres. Or surrounding it is the surrounding zoning is single-family Outer Banks to the north, and it's 2 PUDs to the south, east, and west. So a little bit of background on this. This was all initiated after in February of this year, staff was requested to investigate a violation at the Surf Shack property, and staff determined that the use of the Surf Shack is in violation of the UDO because it is inconsistent with uses allowed in open space. The UDO does allow structures for active or passive recreation purposes, but the Surf Shack was determined to be a commercial facility. During that time, staff discovered that this parcel, even though it's used in conjunction with Currituck Club and operated as an accessory use to the Currituck Club, it was not part of the Currituck Club plan unit development. That when the Currituck Club plan unit development was approved in 1994 and 1995, this was not included in that PUD overlay. So now the applicant has requested for this to be included into the Currituck Club planned unit development overlay. The underlying zoning of this property is single-family Outer Banks, and this PUD overlay would not give it any inherent uses. It's just extending the PUD overlay. The next step, which if this is approved, the next step would be to amend the sketch plan that is associated with the planned unit development and then give it a designation, whether it be commercial, open space, or residential, and then put conditions on this property. We don't really do things this way anymore. It's a little bit of a convoluted process where you have a legislative decision with the extending of the PUD overlay, and then you have the quasi-judicial of the sketch plan and the designation of things. So this is a little bit, that's why there's way too many, there's several moving parts to this. So staff does recommend approval of the PUD overlay at this point. And I'll be open to any questions that the board has. I know you have several because this is a very confusing process.
Ms. LaCicero, if I could, what was the reason that it didn't get put into the PUD originally? Was that a staff oversight? 20 years ago? What was the reason for that? Or do you know the reason for that?
I don't know the reason for that. It was, like I said, it is owned by the Currituck Club Property Owners Association, but it is part of the Oceans subdivision, which I think were developed by a similar developer. I don't want to say the same developer, but they had some items in common. So I don't think it was a staff oversight. I think it just was never part of the original sketch plan, the master plan for this PUD.
And I have one more question. Allowing this to be put in the PUD has nothing to do with how this piece of property can be used, correct?
Tonight.
Right.
No, this is not.
Okay.
This is the legislative process, and if this approved, then at the next meeting you can go into the quasi-judicial hearing to designate, put the PUD the designation either within the PUD, like the open space, commercial or residential. And in that you can condition the uses, put certain conditions on this property. Tonight is just the extension of the PUD overlay.
Okay.
And we've historically, sorry, I forgot, we've historically treated this property as part of the Currituck Club. And, we've issued several building permits in conjunction with this property.
Thank you. Any further questions?
So the building was legal when it was built, and the fact that it operates. Now, how it operates is the other question. But it is proper at this time.
Correct. It was permitted. It was permitted in part. It was part of the Currituck Club, but it was permitted, and it is built to North Carolina Building Code standards. Yes.
It was permitted properly. However, it was not necessarily a permissible use based upon the overlay at the time.
Correct.
I see where the Department of Environmental Quality says that it has a purpose and it should be approved. I see that on page 16. I see where on page 25 it says that it operates, but make sure I'm reading this correctly. But it is not available to the public. It's only supposed to be for those members of Currituck Club. So I see nothing but positive in the fact of saying it should operate, but then it seems like it's not operating like it should be. But that has nothing to do with tonight's...
That has nothing to do with tonight's issue. Tonight is just expanding the PUD overlay so that it would be part of an accessory to the Currituck Club.
Thank you.
Any further questions? With that, I'll open the public hearing. In the interest of time, the attorneys and principals for each group have decided to speak on behalf of their constituents. And with that, I would call up Eric Remington. If you could leave it to about 10 minutes, that would be great. Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. As you know, my name is Eric Remington, and I've been here before you all on issues related to the Currituck Club. I've asked Ms. LaCicero to put up the aerial photograph. One thing I do want to note about the aerial photograph is that since the time that the planning board met on this issue, you'll notice that the beach parcel is highlighted there, but that is not part of the request tonight. This application has been amended, and the only thing that we're asking for tonight is that the zoning map be amended to include the front portion that is up on Yalpin Lane and crosses over Highway 12 and is adjoining on Old Stony Point Road or Old Stony Road to the southern commercial area within the Currituck Club. So what we're asking is that you add this piece of property, which is now classified as an open space area, to the Currituck Club PUD. And for tonight's purposes, as Ms. Cicero said, this does not have anything to do with the use of the property, but I think that you all may hear things about that. So I just ask you to keep that in mind as you go forward. This parcel is owned by the Currituck Club, and it's basically been entered into the Currituck Club as common property, and so it's part of the common property that is utilized by the members of the Currituck Club and their guests. As you can see, it's located on both sides of Highway 12. It adjoins the Currituck Club PUD, and as the other photograph showed that Ms. Cicero put up, it's actually bounded on two sides by PUDs. So you got the Pine Island PUD that's to the south of it, and to the north of it, but you've also got the Currituck Club PUD, which it adjoins. So as far as it being put into a PUD, it would be consistent with being in general areas where there are PUDs. One of the issues that came up was whether this area was contiguous to the Currituck Club PUD. And as you can see, because of the fact that it does cross Highway 12, it is contiguous to the PUD, and so therefore it would be consistent with those rules under the UDO that you have contiguous property within it. As Ms. Cicero said, this property has been treated as part of the Currituck Club for the past 20 years. Initially, it started out as just an open space, 100-foot wide access, and then it was purchased by the Currituck Club, Currituck Associate Residential Partnership, and then it was created into what it is now with 3 homes, tennis court, and the area that's considered open space and has the surf shack on it. What we're asking the commissioners to do tonight is basically correct what's been treated as part of the PUD and add this to the PUD to make it officially part of the PUD. The total acreage of this parcel is 0.82 acres. It's less than 1 acre. And so it's not a significant amount of area that we're asking to be added to the PUD. The Currituck Club PUD is around 560 acres already. And so adding this area to the PUD as open space, which it is currently, will not have any kind of impact on whether there's too much commercial use or anything like that within the PUD. This map amendment request is committed solely to your all's discretion. You all have the ability to approve this. Then we will go forward and have a second hearing as to what the particular uses of this property could be. But there are certain standards and factors that you should consider or can consider, you may consider under the UDO. We believe, and I think that the staff has recommended and said that they believe that this satisfies those conditions, this request that we're putting forward tonight. It's consistent with the goals and objectives and policies of the UDO and the land use plans. This area here is a vital part of the Currituck Club community, and it has acted that way for 17 plus years. And under the UDO section 1.3H, it talks about preserving the quality of communities like this. And what the Currituck Club members and their guests do is use this parcel as an amenity for their community. Another standard under the UDO is section 1.3A. That talks about convenience, compatibility, and efficient relationships between land uses, and we believe that this does that. Basically, what it does is it ties the Currituck Club with the beachfront property, and then it also allows the people to have a place where they can be transported over there, dropped off, and go to the beach. So it reduces traffic, it reduces congestion, and actually enhances the beach experience for those folks. The use of it for the Currituck Club is basically to provide an open space amenity, and that's the way it's been used. People can go over there and they can rent equipment and things like that for use of the beach. It's, as Ms. Cicero said, it's an ancillary use to the Currituck Club, and we believe that one of the factors that the UDO and land use plan talk about is clustering similar uses in similar areas. And because you have a commercial area across the street on both sides, although this picture reflects a grassy area for the Pine Island area, that's also been designated as commercial use. So although we're not asking for it to be a commercial use, we're asking for it to be brought in as an open space and just to be brought into the Currituck Club. It's consistent with being clustered in these PUD areas. This would preserve the historical use of the property. which it's been used with the Currituck Club PUD and the way it's been treated. And so we believe that, again, it's consistent with the UDO and also the land use plan provisions and standards. It addresses a demonstrated community need for beach amenities. Other communities in the area along Currituck, on the Corolla beachfront have beachfront amenities and beach side amenities, and this gives the Currituck Club the same kind of amenities. It does not adversely affect nearby lands. This property has been being utilized for this purpose for the last 17 years, and has been there have been buildings on it and been utilized for this purpose long time. The use, again, of the parcel, as far as what's going to be approved for this parcel, will be for the next hearing. But we would ask that you approve this request to bring this parcel into the Currituck Club PUD, and that you approve it tonight so that it becomes part of the Currituck Club PUD. And I'm willing to answer any kind of questions that you all may have. I'd like to have an opportunity to rebut the comments that are made or respond to comments that are made by the community or Ms. Schwedler.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Remington?
Just a quick clarification, just for anyone that's following this that's not here that doesn't understand. The little turquoise box on the beach out there, when this request was originally put through, there was a problem with continuity, and so I just wanted to give you a chance to explain. That's basically just owned property now, essentially, by the Currituck Club. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
We had requested originally that both parcels be brought into the Currituck Club PUD. We believed that they were contiguous. After listening to the planning board, hearing from the planning staff, getting feedback, we've decided that is not part of our request. We're not going to ask that be brought into the Currituck Club PUD. It would just be property that's owned by the Currituck Club PUD. By the Currituck Club POA.
Right. Thank you.
The open space, your words.
Yes, sir.
It's listed now as open space,
It is.
and based on the open space that most properties have based on when it was built, does that change the needed amount that they have to have? Such as if I build a community today, you tell me I have to have so much open space. Will they still have the correct amount of open space if we change it?
It's 0.8 acres, so it's not quite an acre. The total acreage for the Currituck Club, we've got it around 582 to 88, depending on which plan we're looking at, total acreage. And the total open space, active and passive open space, is around 227 acres. So this is not quite an acre. Staff doesn't believe that would be very significant change going from 227.3 to 228.1 acres of open space. There's still, we're getting into big numbers.
Thank you.
So. Commissioner Hall, if I might address that, it adds to the open space, which the requirements are that you can't go below a certain percentage for open space, and so it would basically be adding to the open space in it. And then the question will become, what uses can it be put to?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So for clarity on that, it's okay to go over the requested amount of open space, correct?
Yes.
Thank you. Any further questions for Mr. Remington? Thank you.
Thank you.
Jamie Schwedler.
Good evening, Chairman Hanig and members of the Council, of the Commission. My name is Jamie Schwedler with Parker, Poe, Adams, and Bernstein, and I'm here to present on behalf of the Pine Island Property Owners Association in connection with Spindrift Property Owners Association, and that presentation will be by Paul Manberg. With the Chairman's permission, we'd like to just consolidate our presentation to less than 10 minutes. I'll begin and let Mr. Manberg proceed, and then I'll wrap up.
That will be fine. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm not going to talk about the uses that are proposed on the parcel tonight. I understand that that's a decision that's going to be left to this board's determination at the next hearing if the request is approved tonight. But what I am going to talk about is the sound zoning principles that would be violated by bringing this parcel into the Currituck Club POA. I'd like to thank the county for taking several very right steps in this last year, especially in the last couple of months, of addressing the overcrowding issues that have happened on that parcel and the result of the use of that parcel. And I'd commend them for doing that, and we encourage them to work with us in the future to taking the next right steps. And I'd like to just highlight what those could be. We appreciate the progress we've made so far, but the proposed zoning request still gives us serious concern. And it gives us concern because of those standards that Mr. Remington mentioned in 2.4.3C, because they call upon this board to look at the various ways that the proposal is consistent or it's inconsistent with the county's policies, including its land use plan. And it boils down to this. Your land use plan calls upon the board to make zoning decisions that don't result in overcrowding, that result in a way to protect the beach, that make the area safe for residents to use, not just for the benefit of one private, gated Soundside community, but for the benefit of all. And I didn't think I'd be quoting a pastor tonight, but I did hear the pastor say that the board's job is not just to serve one group of residents, it's to serve all. And I believe that these concerns really go to the heart of what the public is concerned with. We've said all along that if the Currituck Club would simply regulate itself, we wouldn't be before you tonight. We wouldn't need the help of the government to make this land use reasonable. But we've seen time and time again that despite warnings, despite cautions, despite pleading, the Currituck Club has refused to make a reasonable use of that parcel. And so we're forced to be before you tonight to explain what those concerns are, to hope that we can work together with the Currituck Club and with the county as a partner to develop some reasonable restrictions on the problems that are occurring, both in this hearing and in subsequent hearings. And I'd just like to highlight what some of those are. But before I do, I'd like to just note that because the board has essentially been forced to make very clear direction to curtail the action of the Currituck Club, I'd like to emphasize that even though this is characterized as a simple zoning action to bring the parcel within the PUD, this decision is a legislative one. It's one that's within your discretion. And if the board is tired of trying to regulate a use for a user who has deliberately and continually not followed the rules, the board has the discretion to deny this use outright tonight. If they choose not to and approve the use to go forward and have the sketch plan hearing, that hearing will be on a very different standard that does not have as much discretion as the board enjoys tonight. The quasi-judicial procedure is much more like a hearing with evidence. And so if the board is inclined to put a clear message as to what this abuse has cost the board and cost the citizens of the county, that legislative discretion is with you tonight. And so these zoning concerns deal with that use of the parcel as they've gone on in the past. And it really boils down to this. They're inconsistent with the land use plan. They've negatively impacted the adjacent land. It's been unsafe to put any use on this parcel designed, that's 0.82 acres, designed for 600 homes and their residents. And just to put that in real numbers, that's 600 homes times 4 to 6 people renting that home. That's somewhere between 2,500 people and 3,600 people at full build out that would all be able to access this parcel, to use this parcel in a way that will be determined later. But the zoning decision is to make this parcel part of that larger area where those users could make use of it. And I'd like to answer Chairman Hanig's question on why this was not added in the beginning. The parcel that we're dealing with is on the left side of the screen there, as what is now the Surf Shack, was originally a 100-foot wide strip access that was controlled by the predecessor to the Currituck Club POA, the Boating Oil Corporation, and a subsidiary. And they effectively owned the oceanfront parcel and the Surf Shack parcel. But instead of keeping that 100-foot wide access to truly make it a sound to beach community, they decided to subdivide it. And they decided to sell off those lots. They made the decision to cut off the beach access and not provide that continuous strip of access to the Currituck Club. And so what they did is they ended up with these stranded parcels, and they deeded over those parcels to the Currituck Club in 2013. And that's exactly the same time that the use started to change. So we have these pictures of what the use was at before, and from 2013 to 2016, it rapidly increased. This area, that's 0.82 acres, after it was taken title by the POA, started having a very significant increase in volume. That's when we had the issues with the driving on the beach. That's when the vehicular valet service was introduced in 2016. And this started to be marketed as a resort-like amenity available to people. So instead of these nice, open, pristine beaches, we had a vehicular valet driving up and down the beach. Now, this county did the next right thing. They decided that pedestrians mixed with vehicular valets was just not a good idea, and they canceled the contract. They saw some issues with the driving ordinances, and they amended the ordinances. So by 2016, we're in a situation where this is the level of use that we have on the beach. And the planning board went out, saw the use, and said, we're going to recommend full denial. We're not going to just have a split vote or have a serious question about this. They went out, they visited the site, and they were concerned about safety and the public interest. 3 days after the planning board hearing, an ambulance tried to access the beach, and this was the scene that they had to navigate. Amid portions of the beach that were rented out by the Currituck Club and its vendors, the circles, and you can barely see them from the people in the way, are the ambulance trying to navigate through those umbrellas and tents and things, and had to be moved out of the way for the ambulance to be able to make it back off of the beach. Several weeks later, the county canceled the contract, which had allowed some driving up and down the beach access. Again, that was the right decision. And yet 1 month later, the same emergency crews were back, this time for a drowning on the beach. And there's no question that that was a tragedy and just an absolute accident. But the point is that the overcrowding has been a distraction for the county. It's the county trying to get out there and provide these emergency services, and the volume of people being transported to the surf shack for the uses that would be eventually approved by the Currituck Club are causing an overcrowding and a congestion that's causing undue risk to the county, and it's a burden that the constituents of the county should not have to bear. And following that termination, that admonition to the Currituck Club to cancel the contract and stop the vehicular use, just last week we sent a video where a Currituck Club golf cart was driving up and down the access. Just last week, there was a tent set up on the public sidewalk for the beach access, where the Currituck Club is running a different valet, but still using the county's land for profit, and they're still advertising the beach valet. And what does this tell us? It just tells us that the Currituck Club has proven time and again that they refuse to follow the rules. No one is contesting that they shouldn't have the ability to have some sort of amenity or some sort of beach access, but do it in a location that's appropriate for the size of the community that you're trying to support. Go out and buy another parcel and zone it commercial and build that resort-like amenity that you want to advertise. But don't try to squeeze it into this little parcel that was subdivided and sold off for profit and left you landlocked. The Currituck Club is trying to sell itself as a sound to ocean community, but they're doing it on a parcel that doesn't make zoning sense. And so that leaves us with several zoning concerns that I'd like Paul Manberg to come up and address, and then I'll wrap this up quickly.
Thank you, Jamie. Thank you all for listening. My name is Paul Manberg. I live at 481 Spindrift Trail, and I've been here for 7 years, and I've seen the change of the beach experience that we've all had. I'm speaking both on behalf of myself as well as the Spindrift Property Owners Association, on which I'm a board member. You'll see in your packet I did submit some written comments that were in response to the public hearing that was held by the Currituck Club, in which I've outlined a number of concerns that I have had, as well as the other 32 homeowners in Spindrift about this. We're uniquely affected by this, the surf shack, because we have properties that are adjacent to the surf shop operations. And so we have seen what's happened with the increased utilization and the increased commercialization. So our property owners that are adjacent to it get all of the litter that comes from the people that start eating there. They have the noise from all the people that are there. They bought homes in order to have a single-family residential type of experience, and they have a commercial operation running next to them. Now, I understand that there was a approval of the building. We think that the setbacks are not sufficient from the property owners that we have. We've seen the adverse effects on noise and litter in that area that are affecting our homeowners. And then, as well, the commercial operations, which I know we're not discussing now, but they've had an adverse impact on all of our homeowners, both those that are adjacent as well as the rest of the community, because of the overuse of the parcel there, and as well as the commercial operations, which has now been renting out space on the beach, reserved spaces on the beach. If you look at the marketing materials that Currituck Club has on their website, they talk now about having your own reserved spot on the beach, which is setting up umbrellas in the morning on spindrift property owners in front of their houses. That's all being just reserved early so that all of the people in Spindrift can't get to the beach. It has had a negative impact on our homeowners from the standpoint of housing values. If you've seen a most recent sale in February of this year, an adjacent owner had to sell their property for $100,000 less than what the tax assessment was. It has also affected our rental values because people have been looking at the overuse there. And we've had renters come see what the beach situation is like and get other homes in the community, even though it costs them to purchase a rental week at another facility. And that's the feedback that we have from our renters. So when I hear them say that there's been no impact on surrounding communities, I'm here representing the Spindrift owners to say that that is simply not true. It has had a significant negative impact with the change in the operations over the last 2 years. So I'd like for you to, again, represent all of the community members and listen to the feedback that we have that are against it. And however legislatively is the right way to put conditions on this, whether it's today rejecting it or having a very clear message that this overuse cannot continue, I really plead that you take that into account, that all of the owners that live next to this operation of the surf shack, that our views are at least taken into consideration as you look at that. Thank you very much.
Before you step back, Mr. Memberg, I have a question for you. You said you've lived there for 7 years. Was that
Yes.
correct? Would you say that how were things before 14 when the activity increased? So your first 3 or 4 years there.
That's for many years, for about 10 years prior to that, I used to rent in many different subdivisions, including the Currituck Club, including all of the subdivisions up and down.
Mm-hmm.
I was very careful in deciding where to buy, and I liked it because Spindrift had larger lots. We had it was specifically because the beach was not as crowded as other communities.
Mm-hmm.
That has changed significantly. And especially over the last, since 2014, and it really peaked last year, and then obviously this year we're having more discussion about that.
Okay. All right.
So it has been a dramatic change in the utilization, and I would suggest maybe the commissioners ask the Currituck Club to look at their utilization of numbers, because when I hear that they've got another 200 homes that are about to be, will be built out, that southern access will not handle it. And we all know that, that's a problem at that location. And so that has to be addressed by the county.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Manberg. Jamie, or Ms. Schwidler, if I could, I'm allow everyone to speak, and then you'll have a chance to rebut.
I'm sorry?
I'm allow everyone to speak, and then you'll have a chance to rebut.
Absolutely.
Heidi Corsello.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, dedicated county staff, I realize that what is before you this evening is not about usage, but I do want to take this opportunity as the general manager for the Currituck Club to correct the record on several things that have been said this evening. The first is that motorized beach valet, and again, although this is not up for discussion tonight as far as the plan The motorized beach valet was not started in 2013. It's actually been going on since the late 90s. So this is not something new. This area, though, is an amenity for the Currituck Club. And I urge you, in listening to Pine Island's or Spindrift's testaments as to what they have found down at the beach access, to please recognize that the Currituck Club has taken the guidance from county staff, and we have been listening to what the commissioners are requesting, and we've taken drastic steps to change our operations, to be more friendly, to address the concerns of our neighboring communities. We have completely eliminated motorized beach valet. As you know, the contract for the handicapped, unfortunately, the handicapped assistance was sacrificed in that. But we have completely eliminated that motorized or vehicular beach valet service. We are still offering some assistance to guests in that area, but in a much different area or in a much different way. We have also taken drastic steps to make the area more user-friendly. We've cleaned it up, if you will. I think that even county staff has recognized that it looks much different. So we are seeking guidance and taking that guidance from the county staff. The statement about the emergency that occurred, two emergency situations down on the beach this summer, is a drastic misrepresentation of what actually happened. And I know this because I was down there and I've seen this, that when those emergency vehicles came down, I can speak to the July incident, it was actually because of our staff members that were there that they were able to clear out the umbrellas and the chairs and the beachgoers who were in the actual way. It was our staff members who assisted the emergency teams in clearing a path because they had been made aware that emergency vehicles were on their way. So it was because of that quick action that emergency vehicles were actually able to get into the area faster and without further incident. So I urge you this evening to take into consideration the situation as it is now, the cooperation that the Currituck Club, of course, has with the board and with the staff, and to allow this to be included into the PUD. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Corsello. Michael Cherry.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Michael Cherry. I reside at 869 Corolla Drive in Whalehead. I am the president of Lighthouse Resort Services. I'm the developer and lessee of the Surf Shack parcel. I began providing services to the Currituck Club from that location in 1997. I built the first building in the winter of 99-2000 with county approval for a base of Currituck Club guest operations for snacks, drinks, and alcohol sales for owners and guests to enjoy. I received my commercial building permit, certificate of occupancy, and ABC permit for this building. The ABC permit requires additional signatures from fire marshal, county manager, and zoning. I also received a letter from the then county manager, Bill Richardson, in 2000, confirming the county approves of the services and operations at that location. Then, in the winter of 2010-2011, I built the second newest building. I went through full county TRC process, technical review, for the building permit. I received my certificate of occupancy and all required signatures from county staff for my additional ABC permit. I've now spent 20 years of my life operating from that site. The process that has been going on for the last year has been very strange for me and honestly difficult to understand. I've always felt very confident in the process of receiving building permits and certificates of occupancy. I went through all the correct applications, all the approval processes, filled out every form like I was supposed to fill it out, worked with Donna Volova from the beginning of this. She's the only person still on planning staff. This has been done with massive transparency. How this got missed in the PUD, I've worked with the developer now for a very significant amount of time. I still can't believe it wasn't. still shocking to me that the Currituck Club Ocean subdivision, somehow that got missed because it shouldn't have been missed. So Ben Woody did his best at helping me understand why he believed the process that we're going through is now necessary. So I'm here tonight to ask you to please approve this PUD amendment and allow my county-based business to continue serving the owners and the guests of the Currituck Club like we have for the last 20 years. And I wanted to quickly address a couple of things that were said. I feel like that the overuse at this site is also being confused with the fact that it is a public access. You can't forget that, this season we had the beach renourishment in Duck, so we had a significant amount of people that were using the access from Duck. And that's the county-owned bathhouse. It's a public parking lot. So we do have a lot of different folks that use this access. We cannot forget that and just pick on the Currituck Club, because the Currituck Club has trolleys that come down on Yopon Lane, and that's not what we're discussing with this use. That use has been said that that's totally okay, that they come and use Yopon Lane to do that. So I really don't think this needs to get confused with that. And as far as the equipment that gets set up on the beach in the morning, the allowable time that the county allows all Currituck County-based businesses to set up chairs and umbrellas is 6 a.m. to 7:30 in the morning. That's when Ocean Atlantic Rentals, just for the beach, the Pine Island PUD, they have their own service that's based out of the Hampton Inn that goes up and down the beach in front of Pine Island that they approve, sets up in the morning, and then you can't come back out until the end of the day until 5:30 to take down the equipment. So when there's a pre-reservation done, you set up, Ocean Atlantic Rentals will come out and set out 10 chairs, 4 umbrellas, and then they're off the beach for the day. So that's currently the way that it's done through the entire county. It's not that Spindrift or Pine Island's getting, picked on in that way. So I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Mr. Jerry, clarification, if you could, please. You said when you first started this in the 90s, you provided snacks, beverages, and alcohol. Was that through the whole time you started, or was that progression and gotten more and more?
No, when we started in the fall of 97, it was just, doing rental equipment, amenity-based stuff. We did kids' games, because that's where the original trolley stop is, where the Currituck Club comes, and there's a shelter. So we did amenities down there at that site for owners and guests of the club. And then in 99, 2000 is when we added the first building, which was the original Surf Shack, small cedar shake building. And we sold snacks and drinks and our ABC permit, because that has to be signed off again by the county manager, Donna Volova. And so then we operated that way for some time. And then in 2010-11, we expanded on the trolley stop with the new building. And again, this is commercial application, accessory use to the Currituck Club for owners and guests of the Currituck Club. I'm the applicant. I'm the builder. This has all been, again, with transparency and support of county staff. So there's nothing that's been going on that the county hasn't been fully aware of, because we went through all of it. TRC process, as you know, is comments from every person in the county. The setbacks that we've done, everything that we've done, it's on all my applications. I've done my best to make sure that each permit that's been done and certificate of occupancies, and goodness, because we're right next to the public bathhouse, so every morning we see the building inspectors that stop by and the tax guy that stops by, and we're right in the public eye. So I'm here to you tonight. This has been a very long process, but to ask for you to please approve this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Cherry. Any further questions for Mr. Cherry? Thank you.
Thank you.
If I can, for one point of clarity, Ms. Crisella mentioned the fact that they had stopped the motorized service, the valet service to the beach. Just to be very clear, that was a decision that the Board of Commissioners made to cancel that contract. That was not a decision based by the Currituck Club, just for clarity on that. And that was based on just continual violations of the agreement. So we decided to cancel that contract. Currently, that's who I have signed up for the public hearing. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? If I can, call Mr. Remington up for a rebuttal.
Mr. Commissioner, if it's appropriate, I'd like to be the last one to speak. Since we're the applicant, I'd like to hear what Ms.
That's fine. Ms. Schwedler?
I'd like to just address some of the questions that the board had on their own. Mr. Hall, you raised a question about the permit, and I think Mr. Beaumont correctly stated that permit was validly issued. It was a valid building permit when issued, but it was erroneous, and that's what Ben Woody told the planning board, that when it was issued, it was not a permitted use because the PUD had not adopted that parcel into that area, and that was not an error of the staff. It's simply the applicant never took the steps to adopt that in. And of course, we don't know why that happened, but we can surmise that in 1996, when the CARP, the LLC that was running the amenities at that time, made a decision to just keep those two parcels. It sold off the other ones. Two of them are owned by private persons. One was given over to the Spindrift area to use that tennis court. So there was a conscious decision. It wasn't a staff mistake, but it was a conscious decision to get rid of, eliminate that access for whatever reason and sell those off for profit. The other issue I'd just like to raise is that it can be confusing when permits are issued and everyone thinks that they're correct, and for whatever reason they were issued erroneously. But the legal effect is the same, that because this county, through Ben Woody, made a zoning determination that the commercial use was occurring on that parcel and the commercial use was not permitted and can't be corrected through just a regular sketch use plan, that parcel is in violation today. Now, that decision has been appealed to the Board of Adjustment, but as it sits today, the county has made a determination that there's commercial use happening on that parcel that's not permitted because it's not within the PUD overlay. I'd also like to address the public access issue. There's no denying that this is adjacent to the county's public access and that there's plenty of the public that are using that area. And there's no denying that the trolleys can be a good thing. They can reduce congestion. They can bring people to the beach where you can not have to buy additional parking lots. The issue is the way in which a landowner is trying to use a parcel of land. And you all have the discretion to say, from a zoning perspective, do we think this is a good idea to bring this 0.82 acre into this area, and knowing that this trolley service is going to continue, knowing that there's only 30 spaces in the county's parking area. So people like Mr. Manberg that bought back in a decade ago might have looked at that county access, might have looked at those 30 cars and said, I know what I'm getting into. The county could come and there could be a school bus full of children coming up for a tour or 30 people parking there. Nobody could have foreseen in 1995 that 2,400 guests would be carted to that single access and unloaded and end up with the pictures that we saw today of the emergency access. I think it's great that the Currituck Club helped people move the umbrellas and things out of the way. The point is there shouldn't have been that many of them there in the first place. The county had to deal with a situation that it shouldn't have to deal with because too many people from that entire subdivision are being trucked to that area throughout the week or throughout the weeks of the summer, depending on the bookings. And for all of those reasons and the reasons that we've given here tonight, the points of making the consistency with the county's plans really are only risen by the Currituck Club and showing that they're doing things that are consistent with the county plans for their own residents. They're reducing congestion for their own residents by not having to run back to their home and get a Coke in the middle of the day. They can just go to the surf shack or get their surfboard and not have to go back to their rental. They are improving their own rental values by providing this amenity. But that's not what the county is called to look at. The county is called to look at, is this use of this parcel something that is a good idea for the public health, safety, and welfare of all of the citizens? Is bringing this parcel in something that really makes sense? Or should this community, like any other that was investing in oceanfront community at the time, find a parcel that's big enough to handle all of the people that it would like to serve, zone it in the appropriate way, doing all the things that it would like to do, and make sure that it doesn't cause the congestion and concentration that your UDO policies highlight. Policy 1.3.F is to prevent overcrowding of land and avoid undue concentrations of the population. Your 2006 land use plan focuses extensively on the over-commercialization and the preservation of the coastal resources, protecting that public access to the ocean waters of the Currituck County, not just for one sound-side gated community to transport all of their residents over to one spot on the beach, or to one spot which they know can't contain all of those people. They know that there's no way all of those people will stay on the surf shack. So zoning in that way means necessarily they will spill out. Think of this in any other neighborhood. If it wasn't adjacent to a county access or it wasn't adjacent to the beach, you would never approve a 0.82 acre parcel for a use that you knew could not stay on that parcel and would affect the other neighbors. And so it's the reasonableness of the use. It's also inconsistent with several other land use policies that talk about commercial encroachment within or adjoining residential areas and minimal commercial development. And this gets us back to the zoning concerns. The issues that we have here are the use of this land has historically not been a calm, open space for just a few residents trickling in. It's been growing in operation since 2012. It's to a point where it's causing safety concerns and risk is being passed to the county and its residents when that's not something that the county should be taking on. And so in the interest of leaving the county with where things stand, I think you have ample reasons before you tonight to deny the PUD zoning amendment outright. The planning board voted to do this 6-1 for a full denial, citing it was just an inappropriate area for the use. Some solutions there could be the Currituck Club invested in an appropriate parcel, not this parcel for the uses that it wants to do, and that the trolley run to several different locations. I know that there's already been an experiment to go to the different locations along to the village access, and that's an option that's open to the Currituck Club, and we wish that they would take that up. In the alternative, if this use is decided to be, or the parcel is decided to be brought into the county, into the PUD tonight, we'll be looking to the county to enforce stringent, strict, and clear conditions at the sketch use plan. I understand the use; those conditions will come up before the board in 2 weeks if the use is approved tonight. And we look forward to partnering with the county and hopefully the Currituck Club on that matter as well. But whatever the decision is made tonight, the current situation as it now stands cannot continue, and we need to the board to continue its path of leadership and do the next right thing.
Thank you, Ms. Schwadler. Mr. Remington.
Thank you, Chairman Hannick. I'll be brief. I just want to address a couple of points, and I want to bring the board back to really, again, what this issue is about. You've heard a lot of stuff about the beach. You've heard a lot of stuff about the access. You've heard a lot of stuff about the trolley. This is not about the trolley. As was already previously stated, the trolley's been approved, and it's been determined that that's an appropriate use. It's not about the access. This is not about the beach parcel. This is about the 0.282 acres that is up on Yalpin Lane and goes across to the other side of the highway. And it is about bringing that parcel into the Currituck Club as a part of the Currituck Club under its current conditions as open space. Now, as regarding the use of it that's currently happening right now, yes, there's been a determination that that use is not appropriate for that current zoning. That decision has been appealed, and that appeal basically stays that decision until that appeal is determined. What we're trying to do, per the county's suggestion, per the planning staff's suggestion, is trying to go about it a different way and see if we can get that use approved in a different manner by coming before you all, and then we're going to do that at a different stage. But this tonight is only about bringing this parcel into the PUD, and that you all should do because it makes sense. Your planning staff has said that it's appropriate under both the land use and UDO, and it is supported by all of those provisions. This has nothing to do with anything on the beach. Doesn't have to do with overcrowding. There's no evidence and no complaints about any kind of incidents or anything happening up at the surf shack where that is. There's been no safety issues that have happened up there. There's no complaints about litter until this particular series started. So these things are all new. We have taken steps. You heard Ms. Corsello say that we're taking steps to clean up the property. The staff has been out there. They've seen that. They've noticed it. And we've complied with the county's directive to stop utilizing it for mechanized traffic. So we're trying to do the right thing. We'd ask that you bring this into the PUD tonight, and then we'll deal with the use aspect of it at a different time. And so we would ask that you approve this request to bring it into the PUD. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Remington. Is there anyone else that would like to speak to the public hearing? Is there anyone that wants to come up and tell a joke? It's awful stale in here. With that, I'll close the public hearing and open the floor for a motion.
I have a question for the board before we do a motion. Is everyone comfortable with where we're at? I know we had some discussions beforehand on this. I feel that moving towards a work session, is there any ambiguity, I guess, at this point about what's going on?
Are we premature if we have something going before the Board of Adjustments to even looking at this part of it?
I might suggest that it's not unusual for planning staff to offer options to individuals with land use issues short of having to initiate or get into a full Board of Adjustment proceeding, which then is appealed to the superior courts and the courts become involved in it. This is another option that's offered to persons to remedy a violation that's noted by the county, which is try to correct that violation by going through the process that this applicant's going through tonight legislatively, and then of course they're going to need a quasi-judicial proceeding to determine the use. But it really is not unusual, and it occurs fairly regularly where a Board of Adjustment matter may be pending while the individual or the entity attempts to correct the violation that's been noted through another means.
All right, well,
I'm good.
I'm comfortable. I have an understanding.
I'm comfortable.
Okay. All right. With that being said, then I will move to approve PV 94-49 because it is consistent with the land use plan and that it expands the Currituck Club PUD overlay to include a contiguous parcel owned by the Currituck Club POA. The 2006 land use plan classifies the property as full service in the Corolla sub area. The request is reasonable and in the public interest because it is in keeping with the historical use of the property. It is not a substantial modification of the PUD overlay, and the property is owned by the Currituck Club POA, and the property has operated as if an accessory to the Currituck Club for many years.
I'll second that motion.
Any discussion? I have a couple questions, if I could. Does the county know when we actually first started allowing the motorized valet service? I heard 2000 something, and I've heard in the early 90s. Does the county know when that first started occurring?
I certainly can't speak to when it actually occurred in SR.
Okay. And question for Ms. Corsello. Have you ventured into the other fantastic beach access that Currituck has? Have you looked into that? I know we've had discussions about that. We have handicap. Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you. We have great handicap services at the Lighthouse Beach Access, new sidewalks at the I know.
We actually instituted this year, Mr. Scanlon may have seen this at one point, that we started a program this year where we do take people to the Northern Beach Access. It's something that we've just tried this year. It was fairly successful, so we're building on that. And this was to the northernmost access where we take them on a trolley and let them have an afternoon experience up there. So although we haven't gotten very far into it, this is something that we have tried already and was fairly successful, and we'd like to continue with that.
Thank you. May I have a second?
Marion seconded.
I apologize. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously. And with that, I'm going to take a 5-minute recess. Public hearing and action, PB 17-03, Wells Custom Jeeps, request for use permit for light vehicle sales located at 101 Ballast Rock Road, Palace Point, tax map 124, parcel 68B, Poplar Branch Township, request for use permit for light vehicle sales located at 101 Ballast Rock Road, Palace Point, tax map 124, parcel 68B, Poplar Branch Township. And with that, I'll hand it over to Ms. LaCicero.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The case you have before you tonight is a use permit for property located at the intersection of Ballast Rock
if I may
Road.
interrupt, this is a quasi-judicial proceeding, so any testimony must be sworn testimony. So I may suggest that before Ms. LaCicero or anybody else proceeds, that they come forward and be sworn.
Would Kathleen Saunders and Lynn Small please come forward? If you would place your hand on the Bible.
Right hand or left hand?
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. McCree.
Like Mr. McCree said, that this is a use permit for property located at the intersection of Ballast Rock Road and Currituck Highway. It is currently zoned general business, and all the surrounding zoning is general business as well. It is a full service in the land use plan, and the use request is light vehicle sales. The applicant is requesting to establish a light vehicle sales use located at this property. The applicant proposes construction of a new building that meets the design standards required along Currituck Highway and is apropos of the surrounding development. The use involves extensive aftermarket modification to new Jeeps per customer order. However, vehicle sale, service, and repair is not proposed as part of the use. All work will be conducted within an enclosed building, and the display will take in an indoor showroom. So here's all the surrounding general business. It's located just north of Sampat Office Complex. So the site plan did not make it onto the presentation here, but in your packets you do have a site plan for this use. And you also have some elevations of the buildings for this property. The applicant is proposing, like I said, aftermarket modifications of Jeep sales. And I'm sorry, give me a second. Didn't have a chance to get this set up before we had the recess. At this point, you are considering the use of the property for this aftermarket modification to the Jeeps. It will still have to go through major site plan approval through the TRC process. I wanted to get that out there. And staff is recommending approval of this use because it will not materially endanger the public health or safety and conforms to adjacent land uses. It will complement the existing commercial development adjacent to the site. And I'll take any questions at this time. I'm sorry, I'm a little bit disorganized after the break.
This piece of property was the site where the Ferguson was supposed to be built years ago. Isn't that correct? Is that correct?
I'm not sure. I'll need to.
Okay. Well, I think it is.
That is correct.
For people that want to know where it's at, Ferguson Supply was supposed to be building a building there, and that parcel had that sign out there for a long time. But
I remember that.
what's that? You remember that?
Yeah.
Just so people know if they remember that sign was out there.
Okay.
I have a couple questions, Mr. Cicero. So the applicant said they're doing inside storage vehicles and that only a few will be outside for display. Is there a particular reason? I mean, we don't have a prohibition against car dealerships and people having stuff out on display to displaying their wares. Do you know why that would be?
No, but you would be able to ask the applicant. He's indicated to staff that he would be just displaying one or possibly two. On the site plan in your packet, you can the parking is all located in the back.
Okay.
So we would have to have a special display area.
Okay.
And this the access to this property is going to be off of Ballast Rock Road. There will be no driveway cuts on 168.
Well, that might explain it then.
Right. So but he's indicated to staff that it's not going to be your typical car lot with all the cars in front. His building will be in front with potential display area in there, but the main parking is going to be around back.
Okay. See it now.
Any further questions for Ms. LoCicero? With that, I'll open the public hearing, and I will call Kathleen Saunders.
Good evening. My name is Kathleen Saunders, and I work for Quibo & Associates. And I just want to make myself available for any technical questions you might have for the site plan that's within your packet. We will be doing the site plan, and the site will comply with all of the technical review criteria that the TRC sets forth when it goes through.
Thank you, Ms. Saunders. I will call Lynn Small.
Good evening. My name is Lynn Small, and I have the property adjacent to their proposed project on 113 Ballast Rock. In the application that I saw, it talked about the use of the parking area, and it says cars will not be regularly housed within the parking area for display. My concern is will they be regularly housed for repairs? I am directly west of them, and their parking lot adjoins the property that I have, and I just was curious as to whether they would be using that area to store vehicles that would be waiting for repairs, not for display or sales. And I assume that there'll be some landscaping plan available at some point, because I don't see one in the plan.
That would go through the site plan.
Okay. It was just a concern about having stored vehicles for repairs. Thank you.
Yeah. Ms. LoCicero, can you answer that question?
The majority of the vehicles were going to be stored inside has been indicated to us by the applicant. And the applicant is here. If he would like,
Do you want to swear him in? So
we can.
Speak to?
Put your left hand on the Bible, raise your right hand, please. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you, sir. Could you please state your name and address for the record?
My name is Michael Wells. I'm at 37 Sailfish Drive, Manteo, North Carolina.
Thank you. Are you able to answer the question as to the storage?
So we only buy new Jeep Wranglers, and we custom build them. So I would say whatever the parking is zoned, which general business. So there will be some new Jeeps sitting out back to be waiting to be built, maybe 7 to 10 at a time. But we won't be having the public bringing their vehicles in and storing vehicles for some unknown amount of time. Our business scope is to buy new vehicles, custom build them, and sell them on the internet and park them inside.
So with the other gentleman's concern, then there wouldn't be any older 10 or junker vehicles being parked there to be fixed up, and so it's all just gonna be brand new stuff sitting there, no unsightly vehicles, and okay.
All brand new vehicles. So we're like this year we're doing 17s. In the fall we're going to start 18s, and next year be doing 2018s, and so on and so forth.
That was my next question. I guess you're currently in this business in Manio doing this activity. So you purchase the Jeeps and customize them and then sell them to the customer?
I do.
Okay. And can I come in with a brand new Jeep to you then in that case? I had a Jeep rental business for a couple of years.
You did?
Yeah. And I modified a lot of my own Jeeps, but anyway, I'm just asking, just as a general, if somebody comes in with a brand new Jeep, they want to drop it off to you to have it modified, is that an option for them?
I'd entertain that.
Okay.
I mean, currently, right, like in today's world, I've got 6 to 10 people that have paid for Jeeps in full that we've sold. So as long as we could maybe work one of those newer ones in, but our technicians are so spoiled with working on a brand new car that it would have to be real current,
Right.
like maybe 1 year old or this year's model, something that we could get in and out within 2 days and not slow our process down.
Ms. LaCicero, were you able to address Mr. Small's concern as far as the parking as we move forward with the permitting process?
Yes, they would have to meet all of our standards going through technical review committee for a major site plan.
Okay.
So we would address parking and landscaping and buffering during that process.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Wells.
Thank you.
That's all I have signed up for public hearing. Is anyone else like to speak to this issue? With that, I will close the public hearing and open the floor for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to go ahead and make a motion to approve PB 17-03 because it is consistent with land use plan policies because it's clusters compatible commercial usage. It is a small business expansion, and it will meet appearance standards that address building design, landscaping, signage, and lighting. The use will not endanger the public health or safety because it conforms to the adjacent land uses and complements existing commercial development. The use will not injure the value of adjoining properties because of all vehicle modifications will take place within the building and will not be displayed regularly in the parking lot. The parking will be located behind the building.
I will second that.
Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously. Moving on to old business. An ordinance of the Currituck County Board of Commissioners amending Chapter 9, Article 1 of the Currituck County Code of Ordinance by adding Section 9-9 to allow the sale of malt beverages, unfortified wine, fortified wine, and mixed beverages on Sundays beginning at 10 a.m. And with that, I'll hand it over to Mr. McCree.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this matter came before you at your last meeting for its first reading. As I explained at that time and as set forth in the recitals to the proposed ordinance, the North Carolina General Assembly recently amended state law to allow for the sale of alcoholic beverages beginning at 10 o'clock a.m. on Sundays. Part of that legislation adopted by the General Assembly requires, however, that each jurisdiction, each city and county, adopt an ordinance that allows for the sale of alcoholic beverages on Sunday beginning at 10 o'clock a.m. And so this ordinance was proposed for the board's consideration at your last meeting. County boards must approve an ordinance at its first reading unanimously in order for it to be adopted at that reading. At your last meeting, it was a vote of 6-1, requiring tonight now a second reading. It may pass tonight with a simple majority vote. I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Any questions for Mr. McCree?
Mr. Chairman, I have something to mention. It was brought to my attention, or was brought up after our last meeting, that I failed to mention that I have a beer store. So I just wanted to get that out there, that I have a business that sells alcohol. And that on the outside looking in, it could appear that I would have a conflict of interest with that. But I'm required by state law to vote for this, even though I could potentially benefit from it. I would also like to mention that my store is closed on Sundays. So while I could potentially benefit from this down the road financially if I decide to open on Sundays, my business is currently closed on Sundays. So just want everybody out there to know that and allay any concerns that any commissioners may have had that I did not mention that last time because in my mind it was kind of inconsequential as I'm not open, and this is something that affects the entire county, not just my particular business. So, with that being said, that's about all I have.
With that, open the floor for a motion.
Mr. Chairman.
Then we can have discussion.
Sure. You want to have?
Yeah. Open the floor for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve Currituck County Board of Commissioners amending Chapter 9, Article 1 of the Currituck County Code of Ordinance by adding Section 9.9 to allow the sale of malt beverages, unfortified wine, fortified wine, and mixed beverages on Sundays beginning at 10 a.m.
Call for a second.
I'll second.
Any room for discussion? Mr. Beaumont.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome.
So this issue is back before us, and again, I'd like to reiterate that the foundation of this country and this foundation of this state were based on what we consider to be Judeo-Christian values, and I've no doubt at the time when when alcohol sales on Sunday were made and permitted, that the reason noon was set aside as the beginning of that time was in order to facilitate the folks to be able to worship on Sunday if they so desired. I've heard the comments along the lines of who cares? It's not for me to say. The reality is, as much as we would like to dismiss things, we still consider those Judeo values in the way we conduct our business. For example, every one of us on this board swore on a Bible as they took office. Furthermore, every single witness that comes before this board put their hand on the Bible and also testified to uphold the truth. With that said, whether or not we the challenge is that, especially when addressing who cares, or it's not for us to say, the reality is that is the role of leadership. We are to take the lead. Not every not every decision that this board makes is based on whether or not it makes the county more money or less money. And, sometimes we're actually called to make the hard decisions, and sometimes those are not very popular. And I would suggest to you that if the majority is what we use as our measure in voting, then this becomes a very easy decision, in that I'm running at least 10-1 in opposed to this ordinance. I've run into one person that's ambivalent, but every other person that I've spoken to is against the increasing of alcohol sales on Sunday morning. What's more, prior to the state even passing this ordinance, I never got a phone call from somebody that said, hey, I own a restaurant and I'd really like for us to be able to sell alcohol at 10 o'clock on Sunday mornings. That was never an issue in Currituck County that I'm aware of. We've heard comments along the lines of Food Lion doesn't like angry tourists and our backward laws. Well, the reality is, if that's why you're not going to come to Currituck County, and that's why you don't want to go to Corrales Beach because you can't drink for 2 extra hours on Sunday, then I would suggest to you, this is still a free country, and, go right on down the street. Every metric that I've heard relative to occupancy has been it's one of the best years ever out on the beach. The Lord knows I've seen it. I heard somebody come up and speak and said, these visitors to us won't have the experience they desire. Listen, if drinking on Sunday morning is the experience you desire, again, you have the option to stay in New Jersey or stay in New York or stay wherever you want to be and drink on Sunday morning. But as, Mr. West quoted, you're coming to our house, we will welcome you with open hospitality. We wave at people. We help them. We ask them, if they need help with their directions, et cetera, et cetera. That's the way Currituck is. It's not about the money. It's not about, giving you the experience you wanted. It's about what's right and what's appropriate. God forbid we wake up one day and find out that somebody tragically lost their life, whether it was a direct result of our passage of this or as an unintended consequence of it. And you know, here's the concern. When you look at drunk driving statistics, how often is the drunk driver not one of the victims, right? The person that gets killed in the accident, how many times is it's just some poor innocent person that happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time? I, for one, stand opposed, and, you know, if so be it. But I, for one, cannot in good conscience support the added 2 hours. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chair, if I may comment. Mr. Beaumont's correct. This is a free country. Free country for religion, free country for people to make choices. You know, I'm a first responder. I'm out there at night when the calls come in. I'm out there during the day and the weekends. I've seen all sorts of accidents. I'm a business owner, but I'm not basing my decision tonight on revenue and profits, even though I've received a lot of phone calls from businesses. I understand what they're saying. I've received a lot of phone calls in support of it. I've received a lot of phone calls against it. I've also talked to some first responders to get their intake, and their opinion was they don't really care either way, because everyone has an individual right to make a decision, and they have to be accountable for their actions and their decisions. I was raised by good parents. They brought me good values. I think I make good decisions. And I'm not going to choose to drink at 10 o'clock on Sunday just because it gets passed. And I think everybody else has the same right to make their decisions and be accountable for their decisions. And if the consequences, whatever the consequences bear, then they have the right to make the decision, but they can be responsible for their decisions. I don't believe it's my right to determine how an individual's should choose and what their values are. I can't do that. I can do it for myself. You know, and I just think this country, I mean, I think people have the right to make their decisions and be accountable for their decisions. That's why we have laws in place as well.
Well, you hit a lot of stuff on the head. I was thinking there, but you know, this is a tough decision, right and wrong. At the end of the day, as you said, we are a Christian nation, founded on Christian principles, with tolerance for other religions. And the question becomes, where do you draw that line between religion and government and separation of church and state? And if it was up to the Mormons, we would have no alcohol sales ever. If we went by Catholic faith, then everybody would eat fish on Friday. So the question becomes, as a government, where do you draw the line? And in the end, it just comes down to personal responsibility for those individuals. And I don't see this, that everybody's going to go run into the bar to go get hammered at 10 o'clock in the morning. Sure, there's going to be people that do that, but they probably are doing that at home anyway. And if they're going to the grocery store to do their thing for later in the day at home, that's going to be probably the bulk of what happens here. So I just, wanted to get that out there. Thank you.
Well, I too concur with what both Mr. Beaumont and Mr. Payman has said. And in the last 3 weeks, I've taken a really strong look at this, and I've had an overwhelming amount of folks contact me in opposition of passing this. And again, taking into consideration going into establishments and having an alcoholic beverage during dinner time. I went to a couple establishments and just kind of sat through the dinner crowd into the evening, and the change of the atmosphere after children were no longer in the establishment really changed my opinion on things. And I support our retailers. I support our local businesses, but I'm really struggling with making a decision to approve this tonight. I'm struggling with it.
As has been said here, I grew up in a Catholic home. We'd get out of church in the morning. We'd go to brunch from time to time. From time to time, my mother would have a mimosa or whatever it might be while we were out at brunch. We never had 5 or 6 or 7. She had her one. Most people here sitting at the board know that I might have my one drink a year. Otherwise, I don't drink. I get joked about Pepsi with 2 ice cubes as I sit with my friends that have 1 or 5, whatever it might be, of alcohol. And I'm content. I have a good time without it. When we built bathrooms at Whalehead for the tourist and spent the money for that, and dressing rooms, just because we were trying to enhance a total package for people to come. When we allow alcohol sales for a toast, possibly at 10 to 12 on Sundays, if we're now increasing weddings on Sundays, it's not about profit. It's about the total experience. It's about understanding people from different areas and different religions and different nationalities that come here. I can remember when the blue laws said you couldn't open up on Sundays except for certain things. And we've changed. I don't always agree with every change that's out there. I don't believe this is all profit motivated. Otherwise, I'm not sure if I'd vote for it. But I believe there's a whole package here, and we have to look at all of it, including accountability by the individual. Thank you.
I've also received quite a few phone calls of people telling me that they're not in favor of it, but I've also received from businesses people telling me that, you know, it will enhance their business. I don't think it's about profit, and we certainly can't regulate somebody's judgment, like Mike says. We're not deciding to do away to abolish alcohol. We're just deciding if it's going to be beneficial to some people to have alcohol sales at 10 o'clock. And with the weddings that we're trying to encourage and all that, I can see where businesses want to have alcohol sales, and I can see where church people don't want to have alcohol sales. So I'm like Miriam. I'm certainly torn between it, but if we were sitting here trying to regulate the sales of alcohol, then I think that would be different. But this is just to have sales at 10 o'clock on Sunday that might benefit some of our local businesses.
I don't know how anyone can say this has anything to do other than with making money or with profit. Anybody that says that in that it benefits our businesses, it has to do with money. So let's all be intellectually honest. This has everything to do with about money. A point of clarity: separation of church and state, while bandied about the government getting involved with the church, if you go back historically, that is predicated on which Christian belief would be promulgated or promoted by the federal government. Not it has been way blown out of proportion. So the correct context for separation of church and state would be similar to what was done in England, which was, I believe it was the Protestant Church of England, was the faith official religion of England. That is a completely separate issue, and that has nothing to do with this.
And Mr. Beaumont, I mean, you may be correct that it has to do with revenue, but I believe I did state in my comments that my decision was not going to be based on my perception of it, of the revenue side of it.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
No.
Motion passes 5-2. Moving on to new business. Consideration and action. I'll give time for the room to clear out. Mr. McCree, when will that go into effect?
When will that go into effect?
I'm sorry? Yes, it goes into effect immediately.
Thank you. Moving on, consideration and action, PB 14-32, Tucker's Cove, a request for a one-year extension of the preliminary plat use permit of a 25-lot residential major subdivision on property in Moyock located along the north side of Tulse Creek Road and across from Lou Sawyer Road, tax map 39, parcel 13, Crawford Township. With that, hand it over to Ms. LuCicero.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In August of 2015, the Board of Commissioners approved a preliminary plat use permit for Old Bay Ridge. This is that 25-lot residential conservation subdivision located off of Tolls Creek Road. It is next to the New Colony Landing neighborhood subdivision, and the preliminary plat approval is due to expire on August 17, 2017. In June of this year, we received, the county staff received a letter from Mark Bissell, the engineer for the project, requesting preliminary plat extension. And you do have the authority to do that. The UDO, section 2.4.8E, the Board of Commissioners may grant a 2-year extension of the preliminary plat for a one-time good cause. Mr. Bissell is citing drainage issues, resolving some of those with that specific site, and the applicant is only requesting a 1-year extension. This has been done in the past for other use permits and preliminary plats, so this is well within your regulatory authority. Any questions? I'll be glad to answer, and Mark Bissell is here tonight as well.
If I can, Mr. Bissell, what's the reason for the extension? I understand the drainage issues, but are you having issues, or is there a delay for?
At this point, and by the way, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, I am very pleased to be able to come with you to you tonight with something that I believe is non-controversial.
Oh, yeah?
Finally, a joke.
Took 3 hours.
Thank you.
There was a drainage issue with the adjacent subdivision that was dumping water onto this property that was not approved that way, and we had to work through that. We had some issues with DOT. Mr. Williams, the owner of the property, is actually a commercial real estate broker and has not been a residential developer in the past and has kind of moved cautiously. At this point, we have completed the construction drawings. The permit applications are all in process with the state agencies, and that's why we've only requested a 1-year extension. We hope to have this property or this project under construction this fall and completed prior to the onset of bad weather.
One quick question. In the beginning of your statement, you said that the adjacent property was dumping water onto your property?
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
And that was not a part of their approved plan, and it was impacting one or more of our lots.
Right.
If I might, is this the one, if you're going, since I don't have a map here, if you're going south on Tulls Creek Road, for lack of another way, going south, it's on the left-hand side?
Yes, it is. It's a wooded tract.
It's the one that sometimes it seemed like they were dumping, but also we'd have water that would come across Tulls Creek Road and sometimes flood it a little bit.
Was it a couple of years ago?
Yes, I think this is.
It did come across
Yes.
Tulls Creek Road,
Okay.
and DOT did come out and studied it, and we met with them, and they indicated
You were actually
that,
improving some of the ditches that would take the water back to the area?
right, and they indicated that the pipes were properly sized, that that their system was not causing the flooding, and that our proposed project was not contributing to the problem.
Any further questions? Open the floor for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the request for a 1-year extension on the preliminary plat use permit for the 25-lot residential known as PB 14-32 Tucker's Cove.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Bissell. Moving on to the next agenda item, coastal resilience, rainfall, flooding, study grant approval and resolution. I will hand it over to Ms. LaCicero.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And this is the fun one, a fun business item of business for you. A little bit of background of this. Over the last year, during the land use plan process, county staff has been working with the Nature Conservancy to build a coastal resilience app to basically assess risk within the county for things like coastal flooding, storm surge, different things like that would put county property and individual private property at risk. We've been working with the Nature Conservancy staff to build that, and it is going to be part of our land use plan update. But in building this model, this application, it's only as good as the data that we have. And one issue is the rainfall and the nuisance flooding we get in areas such as Moyock, where maybe that's not captured in some of our FEMA data. It's not captured in our flood maps, some of these different areas that are flooding from nuisance rainfall. Working with the Nature Conservancy and CAMA now, there is a CAMA grant available and we've been awarded for gathering rainfall data to go into this model. CAMA has awarded us $20,000 for this assistance to gather this information and this data, and the local match is $6,667. The Nature Conservancy is going to be the catalyst of this, that they're going to be really running the grant to help us gather this data for the rainfall throughout the county. So this is, and I'll answer any questions.
Any questions for Ms. LaCicero?
So we have to spend our $6,667 first before they give us the grant, correct?
Well, that's our local contribution. So it would all be the total project. The cost of the project couldn't exceed the $26,000. But we would pay our part. And I don't know if it would be prior to. I would have to, or at the same time that they would be spending their $20,000.
Does grant funds be spent zero and the local funds be spent?
Correct. That's for project period 1 to complete the subcontract arrangements, begin preparing rainfall flood study, and identify the existing conditions and collect the data. And the second project period 2 would be all of CAMA funds, the $20,000, which would be creating the spatial data, analyzing the spatial data, identifying areas vulnerable to rainfall flooding, complete and submit the rainfall study, complete and submit the spatial layers through the drainage basin, and then submit the grant closeout package.
Mr. Scanlon, quick question. The $6,000 that we are required to spend of local funds, do we have that in an account or in a line item?
We do.
Thank you.
Any further questions? With that, open the floor for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the grant approval and resolution.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously. Moving on to the next agenda item, disaster debris collection and removal contract award recommendations. With that, I'll hand it over to Mr. Scanlon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Excuse me, talking trash chokes me up.
There it is.
There you go.
It's a lively group here we've got.
All right.
Historically, we've had the luxury of relying on NCDOT after we've had hurricanes or storm events. DOT has always been the contractor that's gone out and collected vegetated debris off of our roads. We've done an excellent job over the years of getting our citizens used to the fact that after a storm you drag all your stuff out to the nearest DOT right-of-way and DOT will come and collect that. What we found out after Matthew is that that is no longer going to be a mission of NCDOT. Their resources after storms is going to be preoccupied doing other things, and therefore debris management is going to fall almost exclusively now back on local governments and local jurisdictions. Hopefully, after an event, when you get federal declaration, FEMA comes in, there's always the potential of getting FEMA reimbursement. Just because you've had a natural disaster, FEMA does not suspend your requirements to bid out your services. And so, although we have done this before, we're bringing back to you a renewal where we went out and placed for bid, and it's actually two pieces. There is a contract for a company to physically pick up from the side of the road vegetated debris and haul it to a disposal site that we've selected. And then there needs to be, under FEMA regulations, a second company that monitors what the first company does to make sure they have full loads, they have clean loads, that the proper number of loads are accounted for as part of the check and balances in order to be able to file for FEMA reimbursement. So with that as background, we have placed both the collecting and the monitoring services out for bids, and we received, for both packages, we actually received 3 responses. The challenge with this is trying to assess and evaluate the submittals is these are what we consider pre-positioned contracts. We have a contract with a company, but it's only activated when and if the county needs it. And then it's going to be based on the storm, the volume of material you have to move. So there isn't a fixed dollar amount with the contract. What we got was hourly rates for very different services. We used historic storm data to use that volume as a way of determining comparative analysis based on the hourly rates and the equipment costs that the vendors gave us. So under the collecting, the physically picking the material up, we received 3 bids from Bergeron, DRC, and SDR. In doing this comparative analysis, the county staff is recommending that we move forward with SDR as the company for collecting. On the monitoring side, we placed those for bids, and again, we received 3, Landfill Strategies, Tetra Tech, and Witt O'Brien. After doing the same kind of analysis on hourly rate, we are making a recommendation that we move forward with Landfall Strategies as our monitoring company. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any particular questions the boards might have.
Mr. Scanlon, with these contracts, who is responsible for any fees for the dumping of it? Is that under the contract that picks it up?
Historically, the way FEMA's handled that is just because you are having a storm, you have to follow your normal policies and procedures. As long as you continue to assess fees and put fees in place, FEMA will allow them as a reimbursable cost. If we go out here and waive fees, then FEMA will look at that as non-reimbursable. Also, what we do with material that we've collected, we can't commingle that with material that's being brought in from any other vendors or through homeowners, and so we will have a separate area set up that we will move this in. And I know it's depending on if FEMA in that particular storm is looking at reimbursing you on tonnage or whether they're reimbursing you on how many trips or cubic yards, dictates how we go back and handle these materials. And I guess the bottom, every FEMA event we've been through has been different, and the rules and regulations have been different. So we have to be flexible and adapt with the way FEMA goes. But they generally tell you if you waive your fees for collecting storm debris, then it disqualifies it as a general reimbursable expense. So the tipping fees will be part of the program.
Mr. Scanlon, I have 2 questions. First, who would be the deciding factor to initialize the efforts?
The Currituck County Board of Commissioners.
Okay. And do we also monitor the time span that we will allow this to continue? Do we set the beginning and ending dates?
Yes, ma'am. The county will control the way DOT is actually setting this up now, because, again, historically we've relied upon them to go out and collect. Now, DOT would only collect from, and we too, from public streets. So if you live in a private subdivision, your POA or your individual homeowner is still responsible for this. But depending on the nature of the storm, whether it is, we have county-wide effect, whether we have certain geographical areas that have more debris or not, we will look at activating what part of it. Under DOT regulations, the county will have to send to DOT a list of public streets that we're asking them to release to us, so that we will collect the material from those roads. So the county controls where you pick up, when you pick up, from what streets you pick up, and how many rotations you are going to go out and pick up. So all that will be within the county's discretion.
So, okay, and that's what I wanted to clarify, because I don't want to get to that situation and then we have a free-for-all that, for 6 months
Absolutely.
we're going to pick up and it could create a very costly experience.
Yes, ma'am. And one of the things we will need to work with our PIO as we start pushing out hurricane information is try to undo what we have historically done all these years. Is our community has been very good. The minute the sun comes out, is starting to drag stuff out to the road. We're going to ask them to be a little bit more cautious, because it is not a guarantee that material will get picked up. It depends on the nature of the storm, how widespread the damage is.
Yeah.
So, so we will try our best to put out information prior to events to try to articulate that and re-educate that. Please don't bring anything out until we have actually activated the contract, and then we'll give further direction at that time.
I would ask that we go ahead and have Mr. McCree start, or the county start drafting specific languages, so that when we get to that point, we're not creating
Yes,
that
ma'am.
language at that time.
Absolutely.
Next week we could have a storm come in. So
Absolutely.
I would like to see this a priority if
Yes,
this
ma'am.
is effective immediately.
I have a question for you, Mr. Scanlon. So there seems to be a pretty good disparity in the three bids we have here. Am I reading that right? That yeah. And so we're ticking the lowest bidder in typical government fashion, but and we expect to get reimbursed, I guess. Is that the hope, that we're going to get reimbursed? Is what I'm reading of this.
It's the hope that we get them reimbursed, but we have on the recommendation that we're giving to you for both SDR and landfall strategies, we have checked references. We've talked to other communities that they have provided services with, so we feel comfortable with their ability to perform under the contract, and have talked to jurisdictions in which they've actually performed. So we feel comfortable in making the recommendation, and
That was because it was, the numbers seemed quite a bit off between the
Yeah,
two.
and-
So.
Yes.
Are they a local provider? What's the time frame for them to?
They are, neither one of them is, local. Now, SDR does have folks on staff that we are familiar with that have experience. I think one of their representatives has been a emergency management director for a community in North Carolina, so they're familiar with us. But these are companies that handle coastal communities from here all the way down into Florida, into the Gulf. So these are big contracts, companies that are used to doing this. Generally, most of them, depending on, again, the size and scale of the storm, how many jurisdictions they have contracts with, they will go back and look at subcontracting and bringing in local contractors to assist with it.
Mm-hmm.
Again, very storm specific, depends on how geographically spread it is and the volume what we have in our community. But they will look for local contractors to help augment their crews.
Any further discussion? I would open the floor for a motion.
I'm making a motion that we go ahead with the recommendations of the county manager for approval.
And I'll second that motion.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously. Moving on to board appointments.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to nominate Constance Charles to the library board. He's a retired parole officer and a current resident of Currituck. He comes highly recommended. I spoke to him on the phone. I also found out that he also did community service when he lived in L.A. So here's a gentleman who's retired and has time, and I believe he'd be a good addition to our library board.
I'll second that motion.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously. Moving on to the consent agenda.
Motion for approval?
Second? Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously. Moving on to Commissioner's report. Mr. Beaumont?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I had the unfortunate opportunity to actually witness the loss of one of our tourists in Corolla. I was there. I was present from the son screaming for help that his father had gone underneath the water and had not surfaced, to the search and rescue that transpired. And I wanted to commend Ocean Rescue. There's nothing easier in the world than second guessing the way folks respond and what actions are taken, and we go down the what could have been done better, what could have been done different, et cetera, et cetera. And I can categorically state that there is nothing that we could have done, that Corolla Ocean Rescue could have done any better to have tried to save that gentleman's life. The response was nothing short of outstanding. The work of the lifeguards in their attempts to try and find the individual was nothing short of tireless. And at the end of the day, it was tragic. It was a tragic loss. And it just, if anything, that should remind us that this life we hold is very precious. And it was a shame. It was a very sad day, not only for the family but for the lifeguards themselves, as they fought tirelessly to try and find the individual. So I want to commend Michael Cherry and the gang at Ocean Rescue. Commend Corolla's fire department as they rolled out EMS, as they supported the volunteers, everyone that showed up. The Coast Guard had 2 helicopters in the air, but again, it was a shame. But our folks' performance was top notch. That's all, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Etheridge?
Nothing, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Hall?
I'd like to congratulate Currituck resident Barbara Snowden, who's been selected by Governor Roy Cooper to serve on the NC Historical Commission. Ms. Snowden is a retired history teacher at Currituck High School and is the president of the Currituck Historical Society. Ms. Snowden, congratulations.
Mr. White?
Oh, I could follow up on something Mr. Beaumont said. For those of us that, this is a good one. This is a good one. Following on the tragic accident, so a lot of people obviously from Currituck go over to the beach and have kids that swim over there. For our residents that are here, there is a junior lifeguard program that that they put on over there, and my son participates in it, so he can tell me exactly where rip currents are and what's going on at the beach. So I just want to let people know that if you go to the beach regularly with your kids here and you're in the county and you're fighting Saturday, Sunday traffic and brave enough to get over there, this is something that's available as a summer camp, and it takes up the bulk of the day for the kids, and it lasts about 4 days, and it's just a great activity. Outside of that, we had a visioning meeting recently, which I'm sure you guys saw in the manager's report. One thing that came out of that was it was good. I think the entire board probably should be part of that next time, or maybe even have our own little visioning session. It was interesting, some of the stuff that came out of it, trends that are changing, things that are happening. And one of the things that I noticed at the end, we were trying to put a kind of a consistent statement about what Currituck is. And so it was this long 2-sentence thing. And then we started scratching through some stuff, and we now have Sportsman's Paradise right on everything. We're kind of there, but that wasn't part of that statement. And so it's something that it just kind of stuck, that we need to kind of think about what it means to be a citizen of Currituck County, or what we mean as a county. And the county is so diverse, that's almost impossible, right? We have so many distinct things happening, hunting, fishing, beach, just all these different activities that take place in there. So we've got something for everyone. That's all I got for tonight.
Ms. Gilbert?
I just want to say, keep your eyes open. The early college is already in session with our school system, even though we still have summer traffic going on. We still have our kids that are young drivers driving to high school. We have young adults leaving for college. So just wish them all safe travels and wish them the best in their first years of college, and those returning to continue their secondary education.
Thank you, Ms. Gilbert. Nothing for me this evening. County Manager's report?
Nothing, thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Bond.
Every time, man. Every time.
That's okay.
Sorry. I apologize. I'm surrounded by smart people. That's why I'm here.
Just a couple quick reminders. Remember Wednesday night we had the fireworks going on, weather permitting again, and that we have a solar eclipse coming up the end of this month. And if I know the Barco Library is going to be having a place there for people to come and observe it and have some good information. So if you get a chance, take advantage of those. That's it.
Interesting.
Can I follow up on that?
No.
Just briefly, no, the fireworks thing. So we're having the fireworks. The county has their wine and beer Wednesday over there. So there'll be other activities going on again. If anybody comes over early, just want to throw that out there. So.
Thank
If
you.
I could just tag on with that as well, since it's going to do it. For those of you on the mainland that don't want to go over to Whalehead, I believe we are going to have an optional place that if you want to go down to Sound Park, we're going to have the bathrooms unlocked and we'll have the lights there so you can try to see the fireworks and see how well it does. I'll be there. Come on down and join me.
Nothing from the County Manager. I would call for a motion to adjourn.
To recess.
No. We're sorry.
Motion for adjournment.
Thank you.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I will now open a special meeting of the Ocean Sands Water and Sewer District Board. Resolution authorizing the filing of an application for approval of a financing agreement authorized by NCGS 160A-20.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As we discussed during the budget process, we have been slowly working on replacing the Ocean Sands wastewater treatment plant. We just finished the first phase, which was a 200,000-gallon replacement of a 600,000-gallon system. We are now moving forward with phase 2, which is the replacement of the remaining 400,000 gallons. Well, we are going to need to borrow the money to undertake that project. In the state of North Carolina, under the State Treasurer's Office, there's a local government commission that we are required to appear in front of before you can incur debt. You have to go to them and get their approval. So what you have tonight is one of the first steps in that process of putting an application together. The Board of Commissioners, sitting as the Ocean Sands Water and Wastewater Board, must make certain findings, and those findings are laid out in the resolution that you have in your agenda package. There's actually 9 findings that you have to make. The first one is that this contract is necessary. It's necessary because the Ocean Sands plant has reached its useful life, and it's over 30-some years in a harsh environment. You have to make a finding that this going through a traditional installment purchase is preferable to a bond issue. It is because they're a bond issue for several reasons. Number one, a bond issue has more costs incurred and to go out for bonds. Number two, bonds require a voting of the public, and we have very few voting members that actually live in Ocean Sands compared to how many houses are in Ocean Sands. You have a health issue here with the wastewater plant, and so collectively with all those, we just feel like it's more prudent and more expeditious to go through a more conventional installment purchase type funding. The cost of the contract can be borne by the ratepayers. So if you are not on that system, you are not contributing towards the payment of the system. The contract to repair the system will be bid, so it will be considered adequate and not excessive. That we do have a debt management program, and our policies are sound. It will require a tax rate increase. During the budget process, the board did approve a 6-cent tax increase to support this debt. But again, unless you live in the district, that tax rate does not affect you. Ocean Sands is not in default of any of their current obligations. The county attorney has reviewed the application that we're submitting and has rendered opinion that it's legal and appropriate. and that there will be sufficient revenues from the operations of that particular wastewater operations to pay back the debt. And I'll be happy to answer any specific questions the board might have.
Mr. Scanlon, this tax increase was something that was requested by Ocean Sands?
Yes, sir, it is.
Thank you.
You have an advisory board of citizens that have been working with the county engineer throughout this whole process, and it is their recommendation to move forward with the tax increase, the borrowing, and the replacement of the plant.
Thank you. Any further questions? With that, I'll open the floor for a motion.
Make a motion to approve.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously. I'll call for a motion to adjourn the special meeting of the Ocean Sands Water and Sewer District Board.
So moved.
Second.
Second from Ms. Gilbert. Motion passes unanimously. Everyone have a good evening.